Hello everyone and welcome in this conference about the virtue of fortitude and Holy Lent. We are approaching the end of the Holy Season. Next Sunday will be Letare Sunday. That means that we are in the middle of this penance time with Lent. So I'm talking about a virtue that is, I would say, indispensable to conquer Easter and to endure with our penances. This is the virtue of fortitude. So fortitude is the moral virtue that ensures firmness in difficulties and constancy in the pursuit of the good. Is strength to resolve to resist temptation and to overcome obstacles in the moral life. The virtue of fortitude enables one to conquer fear, even fear of death, and to face trials and persecutions. It disposes one even to renounce and sacrifice his life in defense of a just cause. I will start by talking about the virtues in general. So, the virtues, to use the word of St. Thomas Aquinas, are habitus operativus bonus. That means an operative habit, essentially good, as distinguished from vice, an operative habit, essentially evil. In simple words, the action of a person who is accustomed to do what benefits him in the supernatural dimension. Virtue might be divided into moral and theological. Prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance are four moral virtues called cardinals. Moral virtues are acquired humanly, and they are the fruits and seeds of morally good acts. They dispose all the potential of the human being to enter into communion with divine love, as it said in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, point 1804. Faith, hope, and charity are the three so-called theological virtues. The theological virtues, on the other hand, make the faculty of a person ideal for participation in divine nature. The theological virtues, in fact, refer directly to God. They come from and have as object God one enshrined, as it said another time into the Catechism of the Catholic Church, point 1812. So, fortitude more specifically. In the Old Testament, the term has a very broad semantic scope, extending to physical strength, moral strength, which can be both courage, endurance, and patience. But above all, strength is a quality of God. In the New Testament, in addition to being a quality of God, strength is also the property of Christ, the Son of God. And Isaiah had called God, our Lord Jesus Christ, the mighty God, upon whom the spirit of might would ascend, as he said in Isaiah 9:5 and 11:2. St. Augustine defines fortitude as firmness of mind, firmitas animi, and makes it consist in the capacity to endure evil and adversities of the present life for the enjoyment of the highest goods, as it says in De Civitate Dei, chapter 19:4. It is of this virtue to defend the will of a man so that he does not shrink from the good of reason out of fear of physical harm. It follows naturally that the greatest danger that deprives men of all bodily goods is death. And it is therefore in this that the virtue of fortitude is most perfectly expressed. Martyrdom is consequently an act of the virtue of fortitude, and it is an act of supreme perfection, not in itself, but as the supreme testimony of faith and love of God, for which death itself is brought about. So choosing our death is choosing exactly what's opposite, naturally, the good of our body, our natural good, in order to meet God and to testify our love towards God. So how the virtue of fortitude works? The virtue of fortitude is divided into in two parts, we could say. The first part is called to attack or aggredior, and the second one is called to endure or sustineo. Fortitude can consequently manifest itself in this two way. The first one of these involves a direct attack on whatever evil is trying to hinder the promotion of good. This kind of courage is sometimes called holy wrath. Holy wrath is often overlooked in the life of a Christian, as many believers may make the mistake of identifying anger as a non-Christian feeling. They forget that there can be holy wrath, an outrage that is raised against some atrocity. They forget that sometimes it is right to stew over evil, and that if we stand still, we will never do anything to change the evil. Our Lord has certainly manifested the holy wrath on various occasions. For example, I think about the episode against the Pharisee, or in his violent expulsion of the merchants from the temple. He encountered evil, became angry, and directed his wrath in an attack against that evil. We too, sometimes, we need to respond in this way to the evil in our world, taking the offensive against it. Things like abortion, pornography, prostitution, blasphemy, we will not go away by themselves, and only when we eventually get angry about it, we will engage in the fight against these things. The point is that our faith is not a faith of pure passivity. Courage requires that we be ready to act, to stand up for what we know is right. The second and most important way in which this virtue works is needed for those times when the only viable option is to suffer patiently and endure the trials that assail us. The mystery of courage is endurance. Patience comes from the wise realization that what is worth having is worth waiting for. So, I will talk about more specifically right now about the link that we can find between the virtue of fortitude and the Holy Lent. In this context, the Lenten one, this virtue of strength is extremely important. So, the ecclesiastical discipline in this period prescribes days in which the Christian is required to abstain from some legitimate pleasures such as eating and consuming meat, and more generally, we are asked to approach personal penances. With regard to fasting, we can have an example of the functioning of the virtue of fortitude. In the act of eating, writes St. Thomas Aquinas, we satisfy two types of appetite. The natural appetite, to which the primary sensation of hunger belong, and the sensitive appetite, which presides over the desire for foods and tastes, and whose excesses constitute a sin, of course. When we cut off the food supply to our body, it is as we deprive ourselves of what is necessary for our survival, and therefore the first instinct is to escape from this danger and to eat. This is something very natural. So when we cut off something that is necessary to live, our first instinct is to escape this situation. And here then the virtue of fortitude comes into play. We know that penance, for instance, in addition to being prescribed by the discipline of the Holy Church, is a useful tool to bring our soul closer to God and to discipline our body. Although, therefore, rationally, the idea of penance is positive for all Christians, it is instinctive and natural to want to detach oneself from it, as I was saying before. This also happened for physical penitents who damage, although slightly, their body. So in the physical arm of our body that have as object the penance, this dimension is even more clear. In the moment when we do physical penance, of course the first react is to escape our penances because we are damaging our body. But we know rationally that this sort of discipline will help us get closer to God. As I said before, fortitude helps us to desist from physical good to help us reach the supernatural good. It is consequently fundamental in this Lenten period, and more right now that we are in the middle of it. Without fortitude, it will be impossible to persevere in one's penances, and although sometimes the attack on temptation it is needed for certain types of sin, it is precisely the second way that during these 40 days one must ask for and exercise more. Fortitude, in fact, is a gift that must be asked to God in prayer and that must be exercised daily. Subordinate to the other virtues, and I'm thinking especially of charity, which is itself subordinate to other virtues, and I'm thinking especially of charity, which in itself should help us in a more perfect way to lead a morally ordered life. Fortitude comes to our aid in moments when temptation assails us and when the desire to do good may fail. Fortitude brings rationality back to our actions. We may often ask ourselves, for example, as if creating an excuse, if our Lenten sacrifices will really have a real impact on our spiritual life, and we will want to abandon this fight, thinking that perhaps we already have suffering or we have other types of fight to devote ourselves to. In this moment, therefore, this virtue will lead us back to the path of rationality, showing us and reminding us to do good. I would like to conclude this conference by saying that perseverance is fundamental in trials in order to reach that supreme good, which is God, whose glory is the ultimate goal of our action and more generally of our way of spending the time that has been given to us. Our life is the beginning of the eternity, is the novitiate of eternity. And as in all the paths that are about to begin, tenacity and determination are those that makes the real difference. As it said in the Gospel of St. Luke 21:19, in patientia vestra possidebitis animas vestras, in your patience possess ye your souls. Thank you.